Welcome, everyone. Whether you are a first timer here or returning member, just want to say how happy we are that you're joining us and also recognize our team and the specialized support group hosts who each lead their own monthly support group through our membership platform. Right, just like Paul Chatlin likes to say, together as one is what this organization is all about. And each of us has the same passion of helping others find success in this plant-based lifestyle. My name is Karen Smith. I am a registered dietitian and health coach. And I have been on my own journey with this plant-based lifestyle for about the past 11 years. I'm really excited about our presentation this evening. So before I get to the introduction of our wonderful guest, just want to let you know a little bit more about PBNSG. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to evidence-based education and advocacy of plant-based whole foods nutrition to help individuals prevent or reverse chronic disease and achieve optimal health. And so you're welcome to join our membership platform if you haven't already. And that gives you access to live virtual events, cooking demos, specialized support group meetings, event recordings, and more. You can also check out our website, pbnsg.org, to find upcoming events, the calendar, subscribe to our newsletter, and visit our shop page to order merchandise, which is where you'll find the Perfectly Plant-Based Cookbook. And this is available for free for members on the products tab of the membership page. And lastly, don't forget that our free monthly virtual community support group meetings are the second Thursday of each month. Registration for these meetings can be found at pbnsg.org. Members also have to register for the free meetings, but not for other meetings or events. And of course, you can check us out on social media, and please pass along our information to your family and friends. All right, so without further ado, I would love to introduce our presenter today. Cyd Notter is a Center for Nutrition Studies certified professional, a licensed PCRM Food for Life instructor, a certified starch solution instructor, and a former certified health educator for Wellness Forum Health. She's also a past newspaper columnist and the author of the award-winning book, The Plan A Diet, combining whole food plant-based nutrition with the timeless wisdom of scripture. Cyd hosts an inflammation support group each month for PBNSG and is often a featured speaker at VegFests and other groups. He offers personal coaching services and has provided a variety of health and cooking classes for over 25 years. Cyd has also worked with school district employees and a hospital's fitness center. He can be reached at cydnotter.com, and I will drop that website in the chat box. All right, Cyd, thank you so much for being here this evening.
You are so welcome. So the topic for tonight is how to stay motivated with plant-based eating. And I'm going to gear it toward the holiday season, which is coming up. So we're going to say that it's how to stay motivated through the holiday season with your plant-based eating. Yeah, so the holidays can be really the most challenging time of year to stick with a healthy diet because not only are our stress levels higher because we've got all these things to do and deadlines, but all the high fat, high sugar foods are in abundance too. And sometimes they're right in our face. You walk in the grocery store and there's all the bakery and all the candy and all of that stuff is right at the door. So it can create this perfect storm because we're already tired and maybe burned out a little bit. And then all this tempting, off-plan food is right in our face. So we want to talk about how we can stay motivated to stick to our plan in spite of all of that. Plus, we have the family parties going on with, unless your family is totally plant-based, there's going to be maybe cheese trays and all sorts of things, lots of alcohol at the parties. The office get-togethers, there's potlucks going on, there's bakery exchanges. caramel corn in the mall and plates of cookies and tubs of chocolates and all of these things can really put us, in a tailspin around the holidays. So it's hard to stay on course. Even when we have the best intentions, we need to be mindful of what is happening. So this is the time of year when it would be easy to give ourselves unspoken permission to eat a certain amount of less than optimal foods. Sometimes I've heard people say, well, it's the holidays after all, or sometimes we might just feel like we're being deprived in some way. So how do we stay motivated to stick with our healthy plans? Well, one of the biggest keys is going to be um, lies right between our ears, basically, and that is our diet. That is our mentality. So it's been said that being successful at this way of eating is 80% mentality and 20% skill. So today I'd like to share a few ideas for how to stay mentally motivated, and I hope you'll get at least one or two good takeaways from what I share tonight. So I have 4 tips that I'm going to share. But first, have you ever heard the tale of the 2 wolves? Now, this is a story that I heard many years ago, but I've never forgotten it. And there's several variations of it online, but this is a legend that illustrates the importance of our thoughts and choices. And how it goes is that a Cherokee grandfather is teaching his grandson about life. And he tells his grandson that every day there's a fight going on inside of me, and it's a fight between 2 wolves. It's a terrible fight. One wolf is evil, he says. He's anger, envy, sorrow, regret, false pride, and greed. The other wolf is a good wolf. He's joy, peace, and love, and hope, and compassion, and serenity, and humility. And the grandfather says this same fight is going on inside of you and inside of every other person too. So the grandson thinks for a minute and he says, Grandfather, which wolf will win? And the grandfather replies, the one that you feed. And that is the mindset key, right? It's the thoughts that we're going to feed our mind. This is a powerful illustration of that, the importance of our thoughts and how both of these wolves are fed daily by the choices that we make and the thoughts that we focus on. So the wolf we decide to feed every day will ultimately determine the way that we live because our mindset, what we choose to dwell upon is going to influence our behavior and our habits and our actions ultimately. So the more we feed the good wolf, the less food supply there will be for the evil wolf. Now, the evil wolf, he's the inner critic, especially around the holidays. He's going to say there's no way you should probably stick with a healthy diet. He's your inner critic in a way. He's going to try to discourage us, and he might bring up the past failures that we've had, or he tries to get us to believe lies about ourselves. He strives to lower our self-esteem, and we can't always ignore these negative thoughts, but we can recognize them for what they are, and we can stop giving them all of our attention. So when we stop fixating on these negative thoughts that don't serve us well, the evil wolf will lose his strength and his power over us. So the good wolf, on the other hand, is also a conscious decision. So he doesn't just happen either. He's a choice that we have to make. And the good wolf reminds you of your strengths and that you're an intelligent, confident person who does have the ability to continue down the right path toward your goals, in spite of any obstacles that might come along. The good wolf is going to remind you of your past accomplishments too, and show you how far you've already come. And he encourages you to continue to grow. So the truth is that sometimes it's much easier to feed the evil wolf than the good wolf. And that's because the evil wolf has the more simple way out, right? He encourages us to just put things off, just ignore things and just give up and stay the way we are, stay defeated in some cases. But feeding the good wolf takes more effort and determination and courage, actually. But remember, the more we feed the good wolf, the stronger he grows and the more he empowers us. So today I want to share with you 4 tips on how to feed the good wolf in order to stay motivated through the holidays, especially when you're faced with all these tempting foods. So the first tip is to remember your big whys. These are the motivators that you had from the very beginning, the motivators for eating this way. And if you have deep motivations, this will be crucial to your success because this is what drives us to make things happen. So, what motivated you at the start of your plant based journey? All of us had our initial reasons. Maybe it was for weight loss or health issues or concern for animals or concern for the environment. And perhaps those reasons have morphed or changed over time. I know mine certainly have. Not that they're not all important to me, they are, but my primary motivation, has changed a bit. And so when we consider our big whys, let's think about the reasons we're doing this and then add the words so that. So, for example, that's really going to make the difference because the why, the big why, like I want to lose weight, the so that is going to be your motivator. And I'll show you what I mean here in just a second. And so here are a few examples that I've heard from clients. Okay, I want to get rid of my joint pain. Okay, that's the why you want to eat this way so that I can comfortably travel and play with my grandkids. Okay, that's the bigger motivator, because you want to get rid of your joint pain in order to travel well and play with your grandkids. That's the big motivator. So adding the words so that can make a huge difference. Here's another one that I've heard. I just turned 50, I'm overweight, and I now have hypertension, and I don't like where this is heading. So I need to change that so that I can age well and avoid a heart attack, which runs in my family. Or how about this one that I've heard? My gut issues prevent me from doing so many things, and I want to reverse this so that I can stop being afraid of going out and worrying if I'll find a bathroom, right? That's the motivator. That's the big motivator is that this person is afraid to go out and will they find a bathroom? That's a big concern. Another one, I've watched my dad suffer with dementia, and I want to eat right so that my family doesn't go through that same heartache with me. So sometimes we choose plant-based eating for ourselves, but I've seen people do it for the people around the dinner table too, because they're concerned about their family and what their family will have to do to care for them at some point. Another person said, I'm concerned about my immune system because I'm sick a lot. And I want to strengthen that immunity so that I can better ward off colds and any viruses that are coming down the pike, right? We don't know what's coming down the pike as far as viruses go. So we want to have a strong immune system. That's a huge motivator. And then my own personal big whys, I'll share that with you because I have a dire family history amongst both of my parents and both siblings. I only have one remaining family member now, which is my sister, because my parents and brother have passed away. But our family is filled with heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes. My grandma was blind from diabetes, and my dad gave himself insulin shots every day. So I do have one remaining sister. She's older than me, and she's been bedridden for 3 years now due to a stroke. And she has dementia now too. So she still knows who I am, but I see it worsening all the time. And she takes 14 medications a day. Can you believe that? 14. So my big whys are I want to stay out of this system as much as possible. And I want to hike as I get older. And I want to stay independent to make my own decisions later in life. I mean, I'm 69 now, so I've got a ways to go. But, I see people that age and then they're no longer able to make their own decisions. Their family is deciding things for them. And I don't want that. I want to be in charge of what happens to me later. So those are my big whys. So your why has to be a big why, not just that you want to lose weight for the reunion, right? It's got to be big whys because if you a big why, having a big enough why will allow us to endure any how, like how we're going to get to there. So when your motivation starts to wane because you're tired or you've had a setback, you can feed the good wolf with your big whys. That's the first tip. The second tip is to examine your limiting beliefs. And I first learned about this many years ago. I was reading a book called Cruise Ship or Nursing Home. And it described limiting beliefs in there and how they are false assumptions that we sometimes develop about ourselves or about how the world works. And there are those little voices in our heads that restrict the way we live, and they can block us from reaching our full potential. So they start out as these thoughts that we tell ourselves over and over until we finally internalize those thoughts as truths, to be believed when they may not even be true. And we all have limiting beliefs to some degree. I know I sure do too. I have to catch myself when they pop up, but they pop up. And the evil wolf loves to add fuel to the fire when it comes to limiting beliefs. So if you've ever sabotaged your own success in some way, it might be because you have a limiting belief. So here's a few examples of limiting beliefs. It's not in the cards for me to ever be thin. I never stick to anything. I can't afford to eat. I can't afford to eat healthy, or being overweight just runs in my family. Healthy food tastes horrible, which we know is not true. I've tried everything, but diet and lifestyle won't matter in my case. It's way too hard. It's way too expensive. I can't give up my sweets. This is just who I am, or it's just my personality. I don't have energy to exercise or time to do it. I'm too old to change at this point. These are all like small condensed cases of limiting beliefs where we've already decided that we cannot be successful for some reason. So this is also referred to as the blah blah. Sometimes it sounds like excuses to some degree, but sometimes limiting beliefs can lead us to make excuses, because we really internalize that. Say I feel I'm too old to change. If I've internalized that, it's going to be really hard for me to change because I don't really believe I can. So limiting beliefs are going to stop us from sticking to our plan during the holidays too. And so the trick here is to catch those negative thought patterns as soon as they begin. Like, don't start to dwell upon it. This is where I usually could get in trouble if I start to dwell upon something. So the minute a limiting belief tries to come in, try to replace it with a more realistic statement that will lead to positive actions. In other words, like, stop feeding the evil wolf and start empowering the good wolf. And here's one way to do that would be to get a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle, make two columns. And in that left-hand column, write down all the limiting beliefs that you may have that are disempowering you. And this is going to take time because sometimes we don't even realize that we have limiting beliefs. But do some soul searching here and think about, what your thoughts are. And say you feel like you have these thoughts that you're too old to lose weight, or that you don't have time to cook, or that your parents were sick and overweight, so that's going to be your fate as well. So then after you make your list, and again, it's going to take some time and some soul searching, on the right-hand side of the page, cross those old thoughts out and write down a new realistic statement in the right-hand column. For example, cross out, I'm too old to lose weight, and tell yourself, I'm capable of losing weight at any age, right? I could do it. Cross out, I don't have time to cook, and replace that with, I can prepare simple meals and my health is worth it. We all can prepare simple meals. Cross out, my parents were sick and overweight, so I will be too, and change it to, my choices determine my health outcome, and genetics play only a small role. And thank God for that, because I don't have to be a helpless victim. So my choices will determine even more so than my genes, what my health outcomes will be. So anyway, there's a worksheet for this assignment on my website. If you go, I think it's in the chat, cydnotter.com. If you just go there and type in limiting beliefs in the search bar, I've got a homework assignment based around this very topic. So then if you think about it, do some real heavy thinking about your thought patterns, and then complete this assignment. You'll be feeding the good wolf. And then if you keep those answers somewhere handy where you can read them out loud every day, that's even more helpful. All right, so that was tip number 2. Examine your limiting beliefs and remember to feed the good wolf with the replacements for those. The third tip is to practice gratitude. And I know we hear about that quite a bit. Gratitude ties in closely with what we just covered about limiting beliefs, because when we're engaged in any type of negative self-talk, that's going to prevent us from achieving our goals. So we need to reject those messages right away, and we need to think of things that are going to engage and feed the good wolf, who's going to remind us about the positive aspects of our life, the things we can be grateful for. Who doesn't have a whole list of things we can be grateful for? Even during times of trouble, if you search hard enough, there's one thing in there that you could be grateful for. So write down or journal everything that you are grateful for. Your family, the roof over your head. You have heat and air conditioning, right? Praise God for that. The availability of healthy food in the marketplace, the fact that you have a car and you can drive to the store, your comfy bed, your pets, your friends, your resources, anything that's a blessing to you, write that down. Plus any health benefits that you've already seen from eating this way, or maybe any weight loss that you've already achieved. When you have gratitude, that's going to help you stay motivated through the holidays, because when we focus on what we're gaining instead of what we're giving up, that is a huge mind shift. So be grateful for the things that you're gaining with health, with the plant-based diet, and not, what you're giving up with the standard American diet. The only thing you're giving up there is the risk for trouble and disease. Another mental trick I use to reframe my mind with gratitude is to use the words I get to. So instead of getting a bad attitude over mundane chores, which I can do because I don't really like to do mundane chores too much. But if I rephrase it like, well, I get to go outside, maybe pull some weeds today, or, I get to run errands today. I get to see some different things for a change. When I think about the number of people that would love to do just those basic things, but they physically can't do it, but they would give anything to be able to get out of the house and do those things, that just resets my whole mind frame to be so grateful that I can do it. My sister's a good example of that, being bedridden for 3 years now. So just to reframe your mind with things that you get to do, even though sometimes you don't feel like it, use the I get to strategy to maybe instill some gratitude that you get to do those things, even though they're not your preferred things to do. Okay, so this type of thinking works well with food too. Let me bring that up. So be grateful that you get to choose healthy foods that are going to nourish your body, right? That's what to be grateful for. And then be grateful that you get to learn a new way of cooking, that you're capable of doing that, even though sometimes it seems overwhelming. Keep it simple and be grateful that you can do what you can do at the time. I get to eat mashed potatoes and gravy that's going to help reverse my diabetes, right? You get to eat comfort foods that are going to help reverse disease. I get to eat tacos and burgers that are delicious. And I get to eat an ice cream and chocolate pudding that's not going to contribute to my joint pain. So when you equate the good foods with what it's giving you, what you're gaining by eating the good foods, that's another big tip. And then be grateful that you get to not be a helpless victim when it comes to your health outcomes. I think I just mentioned that a little bit earlier too. So with each healthy meal that you have this season and always, you can feed that good wolf by being grateful for the benefits that that food is providing to you. And then be grateful for the things you get to do as well. So gratitude is the third tip. And now the fourth tip, probably the most important one, but to me it is to choose your words wisely to stick to good habits. And I'm talking about internal words here. All of this is what our mindset, these are internal words that we use when we're faced with tempting off-plan foods. If we determine ahead of time what words or statements are going to boost our resistance, that's something that I call equipping the toolbox between your ears. Because these inner statements that we come up with, these are the tools that you can pull out when you need them. Like when you're tired or you're bored or you're stressed out and there's some Ben and Jerry's in the freezer because somebody brought that into the house or whatever, you're going to need a mental statement to pull out of your toolbox at that time when you're thinking about eating something that's not, ideally optimal for you. So you need to come up with the statements just like you did for your limiting beliefs and write them down and keep them handy so they're at your immediate disposal, unless you can memorize them. I've got mine pretty much memorized now. So here's some tips about that. Let me see. The first one is don't say I'll try, because research has shown that if you say, I'm going to try to avoid the cinnamon buns at the mall, or I'm going to try not to drink peppermint mocha lattes too much this year, the words I'll try are already providing a mental escape route to some degree, right? We're not fully committing, we're just going to try. That can greatly weaken our commitment to staying on plan. So we need to determine ahead of time that we are going to avoid the refined bakery items in the mall, and we are going to not have the high sugar lattes this year, right? Don't use the words "I'll try." Make it a more positive commitment than that. So again, this is somewhat similar to those limiting beliefs exercises, but the thing about this that's different is this goes a little bit further into your value system and what you really care about and what's important to you. So I'll share a couple of my examples that I use when I'm tempted to veer off course. Um, I used to want to buy Twizzlers all the time. That was my vegan junk food back in the day. I would, justify a Twizzler purchase because they're technically vegan, and I would go in the store and just buy Twizzlers and say I was going to eat one every day. Well, I would not eat one every day. I would eat many, every day. And so I knew I had to stop eating Twizzlers because I could not control them. I could not just eat one. And so there's a scripture verse that is one of my mental go-tos. It says, anything a person gives into controls him and soon becomes his master. So, I had to ask myself, am I going to allow Twizzlers to become my master and control me? Twizzlers are kind of controlling me. It sounds foolish, I know, but it's with anything that we cannot say no to. Am I stronger than a bag of Twizzlers? Yes, I totally am. So I'm definitely not going to let Twizzlers control me. So these are the mental thoughts that I have when I need an escape from something that I'm thinking about buying that I shouldn't. And here's another verse that I like to use. It says that everything is permissible for me, but not everything is beneficial. I will not be enslaved by that thing and allow it to control me. Again, another verse about allowing something to control you. So, like if I see vegan mint chocolate chip ice cream in the freezer case, which is my favorite all-time flavor of ice cream, and there's a vegan version of it. I see it and I read the ingredients because I'm a label reader. And technically, like the verse says, everything's permissible for me. Is this vegan junk food permissible for me? Yes, it is. But is it beneficial? No, not really. Am I willing to allow that ice cream to control me? No, it's like 80% fat and it's loaded with sugars and stuff. So I don't need that vegan junk food. I can make chocolate mint ice cream at home so much healthier. So that's what goes through my brain when I'm at the freezer case or looking at something in the store. And it's gotten so much easier. I don't crave those things now, but you're going to have to come up with something that works for you. It could be related to your big whys and your so that's, think of something in there that you could tell yourself when you're looking at something tempting, or maybe just some self-encouragement like this. You could tell yourself, I have a clear mind and the desire to make good food decisions, right? I have a clear mind and the desire to do that. And I trust myself to make the right decisions at the family party. Or there are no food challenges today that I cannot confidently handle. So you need to tell yourself these positive statements. And again, you'll have to determine which statements are going to resonate with you deeply enough to provide the motivation that you need when you're facing a challenge. Last year, or maybe the year before, I was at a Christmas party and I won the raffle. It was a big bag of Dove chocolate things, and I didn't want to go up there and go, oh, no, I don't eat those. So I just graciously took it with the plan to throw it away when I got home. But I had like a 30-minute car ride with a bag of Dove chocolates sitting on my, passenger seat there. And I thought, oh, maybe I could just eat one Dove chocolate on the way home. It's been a long day. And so, no, I had to tell myself I was not going to eat the Dove chocolate. And I'll share with you in a minute the tip that helped me not eat those Dove chocolates which were in my car. And here it is. Okay, it is using the words I don't versus I can't. So there are several articles about this online. This was a study that was published in the Journal of Consumer Research, and it compared the difference between mentally using the words I don't versus I can't. And so researchers took some people and they instructed one group that was, when you're faced with a food temptation, they would use the words I can't. For example, I can't eat ice cream. The other group was told when they were faced with a temptation, for example, they would use the words I don't, for I don't eat ice cream. And the students were all asked to repeat that phrase to themselves over and over. And then later, as each student walked out of the room, they were offered a choice between a chocolate candy bar and a granola health bar. So the students who told themselves I can't chose the candy bar 61% of the time, but the students who said I don't only chose the candy bar 36% of the time. So the researchers then designed a new study. They asked 30 women to sign up for a health and wellness seminar rather, and all of the women were told to think of a long-term health or wellness goal that was important to them. So it was specific to them, what goal were they trying to achieve? And then the women were split into 3 groups. So group 1 was told that when they felt tempted to lapse on that goal, they should just say no. For example, I'll just say no to missing my workout. Group 2 was told that when they felt tempted to lapse on their goal, they should use the words can't. I can't miss my workout. And group 3 was told that when they felt tempted to lapse on their goal, they would use the word don't. I don't miss workouts. So then for the next 10 days, each woman received an email asking to report her progress. And after 10 days were up, group 1, the group that said, I'll just say no, 3 out of 10 stuck with their goals the entire 10 days. So 3 out of 10, that's not very many. Group 2, the group that said, I can't miss my workout or whatever their goal was, only 1 out of 10 stuck with their goals for the entire 10 days. And then group 3, the ones that were saying, I don't miss workouts, 8 out of 10 stuck with their goals the entire 10 days. And why was that? Because the researchers noted that the words we are using internally create this feedback loop in the brain that impacts our future behaviors. So saying I can't creates a feedback loop that's a reminder of your limitation. It like indicates that I would do it if I could, but I can't. It's forcing you to do something that you don't want to do. So like I can't eat that glazed donut implies that you could or would eat it if your circumstances were different, right? So it's a reminder of your limitations. But saying I don't creates a feedback loop that reminds you of your control and your power over the situation. And when you say I don't eat glazed donuts, that leaves no room for debate, right? You've already made a hard and fast rule that you've set for yourself that you're not going to eat glazed donuts. So that makes all the difference in our habits. So in other words, the phrase I can't is psychologically draining, right? It's a restriction. It undermines your sense of power. But using the phrase I don't is a psychologically empowering way to say no. So every time you catch yourself thinking, I can't eat this or that, simply change the narrative to say, I don't eat this or that. Because it's always our choice, right? We get to decide what we're going to eat and what we're not going to eat. And this is how I got home from that party with the bag of Dove chocolates on my seat without eating one because I kept saying, I don't eat Dove chocolates. That's already been established. So quit thinking about it. Yeah, so this technique works really well for me personally. Just by saying that one simple sentence, I don't eat that anymore, really strengthens my personal resolve to say no because there's no bargaining with myself at that point. Once we start the bargaining process, it's very slippery slope. So to recap here, what the 4 tips that I wanted to share today was your big whys added with the words so that added after it, your limiting beliefs that you might have, practicing gratitude, and then choosing our internal words wisely. And all 4 of these tips reflect the need for continual thought and awareness. Our minds have to be fully engaged if we truly intend to stay on track, especially this holiday season. So, and at the start of the presentation, we talked about how it takes more effort to feed the good wolf, right? Because feeding the bad wolf would be just to not even address these things. So if you want to type in the chat, which of these 4 tips, or if they all resonated with you, or none of them did, or if one of them did, I'd be interested to know which of those you found the most helpful. So with all of the to-do lists coming up and the decorating and the shopping and the stress of the holidays, even though it's good stress, right? It's still a lot more than we're used to doing typically. We need more awareness of our lifestyle habits, not less. I typically we put our lifestyle habits on the back burner during the holidays, right? Because there's so many other things to do and we come last. But this is the time of the year when we really need more awareness to stay on track for ourselves and for our health goals and for our weight or for whatever reason, that you're doing this. And I know that you can stick to your plan this season if you follow some of these tips or make your own statements, your toolbox statements. And you'll be so glad you did, because remember, feeding that good wolf mentally, if you do that, the you 5 years from now is going to thank the you of today that you applied these tips and you made these wise choices. I mean, think about that. Add 5 years to your age right now and think about you at that time. What are you going to wish you did now? That could be another mental tip, right? And so before we wrap up, if it's okay, I just want to mention a couple of things I have coming up, if that's okay. This one ties right into what we're kind of talking about. This is a coaching series that Vicki Brett Gach, I don't know if you know Vicki, she's really a master vegan chef and author and a health coach for a long time. She and I are teaming up to offer a special 4-week coaching series called Mastering Plant-Based Holidays. It's going to be a small group coaching program just once a week for 4 weeks. And in addition to the mentality issues, we'll be talking about things like emotional eating, how to handle it when your family's not on board, how to navigate parties and restaurants, how to have easy meals always on hand, and lots of other topics. Much of what we talk about is going to depend on what issues the group wants to cover. So we're keeping the group small so we can offer very personalized support. And we're going to start that on October 16th. And we still have a few seats left. If you're interested, go to my website, cydnotter.com, and click on the courses tab. That's where you'll find more information. And then one more announcement is that I've teamed up with Coach Jody Lynn. She's another Food for Life instructor, as well as what I am. And we're going to do a 4-week series on breast cancer. And so we'll be starting that soon. In fact, next Tuesday, I believe. But this is from the materials by Dr. Barnard and PCRM. We'll be doing cooking demos each week too, plus showing videos of Dr. Barnard talking about breast cancer, which foods promote it, which foods discourage breast cancer. So if you'd like to learn more about that, just please email me. My email is shown there, cydnotter@cydnotter.com, and I will send you the link so you can check it out. No pressure at all. Just feel free to explore that if you feel led. And then lastly, here's a couple other things on my website that you might like to investigate. These are free things. The free webinar called 3 Food Mistakes That Lead to Painful Joints, Extra Pounds, and Health Problems the Doctors Aren't Solving. That's a free webinar. And I've got free 10 simple dessert smoothies. That's a free PDF. And if you sign up for that, you'll be subscribed to my weekly newsletter as well, which I'd love to have you do that so I can keep you up to date with upcoming classes and all kinds of articles that I share. There's a free 21-day meal plan there too. And my book is, of course, on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, but you can get a signed copy from my website if that interests you at all. All right, I am done talking. So which tip resonated with? Did anybody put in there what they thought? Oh, limiting beliefs, Karen? That was
Yeah.
your, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sid. This was so helpful. And
Ah,
just right, like slowing down with your limiting beliefs, like taking that time to even pay attention and notice
mhm.
those beliefs and thoughts that popped into our mind has been a really helpful step for me because they can be on autopilot, right?
Exactly. It's that feedback loop that we were talking about. Yeah. So, and for me, I have to nip it in the bud, as Barney Fife would say, nip it in the bud. If you've ever watched Andy Griffith, got to nip those thoughts in the bud, is what I tell myself, because the more you start to bargain with yourself, this is me, the more I start to bargain. Well, maybe, I really deserve that. It's been a rough day, blah, blah, whatever it is. Yeah, got to put those positive toolbox statements into play. Yeah, so someone wrote, I don't versus I can't. That is a powerful, powerful tool right there. It helps me greatly. Yeah, especially this year, if you have family parties and not everybody's on board with a whole food plant-based lifestyle, there's going to be cheese trays and who knows, high fat ranch dressing dips and all these things that are going to be easy to say, oh, just a few chips and dips or whatever. And it's up to you. If you allow that to some degree, that's totally up to you. But if you're really striving to stay really true this season, then these tips might be of help.
Yeah, and if
All
anyone
right.
has any questions for Cyd, please feel free to type them in the chat box.
Mm-hmm. About any topic. We don't care what topic it is. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I will say good night with some parting words or
Yeah, please, Cyd.
okay. I always end with, life is too short to spend the last 5, 10, or 15 years of your life dealing with all these problems of your calendar is littered with doctor's appointments and, one thing after another. I see it so often in my family and in my circle of friends, that I hang out with. And there's a better option. Just think about that. There's a better option than spending the last 20 years of your life dealing with preventable health issues.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
you gave us so many tools to help tonight, Cyd,
Mhm.
recognizing that, right? We have the choice.
We do. It's not always an easy choice. That's why we need to have mental tips.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This was so fun.
You're
I'm sure
welcome.
everyone will take away at least one, helpful tip to get started on.
Oh,
Um,
and for my inflammation support group that I host here at PBNSG on the first Tuesday of every month, I'm going to be making an impossible pumpkin pie. So you make it in the blender, bake it, and it forms its own crust, and it's really good. So look for the inflammation support group. I think it's November 5th is the first Tuesday in November. I'd love to have you join our group that night.
that sounds amazing. I want to be there. A pie with a crust that forms. That sounds like magic.
Yeah. Yes, a magic pie. That's what I should call it. Magic pie. Mhm.
Well, thanks so much, Cyd. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much for being here this evening. The recording will be available to you as well. So this is a wonderful one to go back and listen to.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, take care,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Thanks for watching and for being a part of the PBNSG community. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for even more plant-based insights, expert interviews, and delicious recipes.